The first signals arrived like tremors from a distant quake, subtle vibrations in the void that only our most sensitive sensors could detect. At first, we dismissed them as anomalies, small, fragile, and inconsequential. Across countless systems we had ruled with precision, no species had ever resisted the inevitability of our dominion. They had always folded, assimilated, or perished quietly. Yet here was something different. Something that stirred the first trace of unease in the hearts of our council. On a dying moon, scarred by centuries of neglect, a ragged band of humans made their stand. Their encampments were haphazard, constructed from the skeletal remains of satellites and shattered outposts, yet there was an order to their chaos, a method in the madness. I watched as they moved with uncanny purpose, scavenging and improvising. Weapons emerged from debris as if by instinct, not design. Every strike they launched seemed chaotic, but every strike hit its mark. Their strategies were fluid, evolving in real time, adapting to our calculations faster than any algorithm could anticipate. What unsettled me most were their eyes, not the organs themselves, but the defiance within them. Those eyes glimmered with an understanding of limits, boundaries that no other life form in our chronicles had ever approached. I felt it then, a sensation foreign to my kind, uncertainty. We, masters of war councils and interstellar dominions, who had predicted the fall of countless civilizations, could not predict this. Each tactical assessment faltered, each probability fractured, until we were left with nothing but questions. Our debates over reinforcements grew heated, tinged with something we rarely experienced: hesitation. Could a species so primitive, so ostensibly fragile, withstand the pressures of space and war? And yet, as our observers cataloged every movement, every clash, the answer became undeniable. This was no ordinary survival. It was a declaration, a message conveyed without words. We will endure. We always endure. Even from our distant vantage, I could sense the rhythm of their persistence. In the silence between skirmishes, there was a cadence to their survival, an almost ritualistic insistence upon life itself. Small squads emerged from crumbling tunnels, each scarred, each exhausted, yet unbroken. Their resilience gnawed at the edges of our arrogance, chipping away at centuries of calculated confidence. We had assumed inevitability was ours. We had assumed no creature could defy the cosmic order. These humans, so slight, so unassuming, were rewriting that assumption in real time. Our sensors recorded the minutiae, the sparks of fire against cold metal, the arc of improvised projectiles, the silent coordination of eyes that needed no signals to communicate. And I, chronicler of the omniverse, found myself captivated and terrified. For in their improvisation lay genius, in their fearlessness lay strategy, in their silence lay defiance. Each act, each breath, each heartbeat seemed to challenge the very laws we had enforced across galaxies. The council debated still, yet a shadow had settled among us. What had begun as curiosity now edged into apprehension. Could this fragile species, measured by every metric as inferior, possess a will that might bend the universe to its own? Could a single spark of life, so unpredictable, truly threaten the order we had imposed for eons? As I observed the humans gathering under the fractured light of a dying sun, I understood the depth of the paradox. They were fragile, yet unbreakable. Primitive, yet extraordinary. Ordinary in form, yet extraordinary in essence. Every calculation we made crumbled before the raw, unquantifiable audacity of their persistence. And then, in the quiet hum of the dying moon, their message became undeniable. Not in words, not in signals, but in the pure, relentless force of their existence. We endure, always. And in that instant, a seed of dread took root within us. A seed that whispered, with chilling clarity, that this species might bend the universe itself, in ways we could neither predict nor control. The first tremors had arrived, and soon we would realize the quake was only beginning. Our fleets loomed above the human-controlled asteroid belt like predators circling a fractured carcass. The simulations, crafted from centuries of battle logic, predicted swift annihilation. Human defenses appeared rudimentary at best. Scattered stations, improvised turrets, and fighters pieced together from debris and salvaged hulls. Their resources were inadequate, their strategies elementary. Or so we believed. From the command bridges, we observed the first signs of a flaw in our certainty. Humans launched attacks that seemed chaotic, almost desperate, until analyzed in the slow, methodical lens of observation. One maneuver shattered our assumptions. A squadron of light frigates, their hulls patched with scavenged alloys, dove headlong into the gravitic shields of our cruiser. Expected to be annihilated instantly, they instead crippled the vessel, exploiting a flaw no simulation had anticipated. Sensors blinked in disbelief. Another strike. Teams tunneling through asteroid rubble, emerging behind our forward stations, striking where our instruments could not predict. Each maneuver defied probability, each act defied expectation. Even in the midst of battle, the humans radiated a calm that was unsettling. Their leaders, wiry and scarred from previous engagements, issued commands with the precision of predators orchestrating a hunt. We noted the contrast. Their serenity amid chaos, their confidence amid uncertainty. Surrounding forces expected panic, yet they fought not merely to survive, but to assert a principle we could not quantify: defiance. It was a force more potent than armor, more elusive than shields, a raw declaration that survival alone was insufficient. They demanded meaning. On our observation decks, we watched as humans turned desperation into an art form. They adapted, improvised, and evolved in real time, converting rubble into weapons, debris into defenses, and chaos into order. Where our algorithms sought parameters, they found opportunity. Where we enforced certainty, they embraced unpredictability. Each tactical decision illuminated a fundamental truth. This species did not operate within the constraints we had defined as universal. They redefined them. The unexpected became ordinary in their hands. Fleets that should have been annihilated by predictable bombardments evaded destruction with cunning maneuvers. Communications networks, designed to provide us ultimate awareness, became traps. Humans intercepted, rerouted, and weaponized our own intelligence against us. Every simulation that had promised us victory collapsed under the weight of improvisation. And yet, what terrified us most was not just their brilliance, it was the purpose behind it. Even when surrounded, even when heavily outnumbered, humans acted with an unwavering intent. Their survival was inseparable from their statement. They existed to resist, to challenge, to assert that no matter the odds, no matter the pressure, their will was absolute. Observation could not quantify it. Sensors could not measure it. We recorded numbers, trajectories, hull integrity, but nothing captured the essence of human audacity. Unease crept through our command ranks. The analytical certainty that had guided our fleets for millennia faltered before the audacity of a species so small, so apparently fragile, yet immeasurably resourceful. Our commanders, trained to suppress emotion in the theater of war, admitted privately to an unfamiliar sensation: respect, admiration, and beneath that, an unmistakable tremor of fear. The asteroid belt became a crucible. Each engagement was a lesson in unpredictability, each counterattack a masterstroke in improvisation. We witnessed again and again the impossible become inevitable. The humans were not merely surviving, they were mastering the chaotic fabric of war itself. The rules we had imposed across countless systems no longer applied. Our instruments, our calculations, even our instincts betrayed us. From the bridge, I watched the humans rally after losses that should have shattered them. Wounded ships limped back into battle. Crews scavenged the remains of their fallen comrades' vessels to strike anew. Their resolve radiated in waves that no sensor could detect but every observer felt. Each maneuver whispered a singular truth. Predictability was irrelevant to them. Where logic failed, instinct prevailed. Where certainty crumbled, audacity flourished, and as the belt erupted in controlled chaos, I felt the first real tremor of dread. This species, small and ragged, had transformed desperation into dominance. Our predictions faltered, our supremacy wavered. Our certainty, the cornerstone of our civilization, was dissolving in the face of something we could neither anticipate nor fully comprehend. The human's audacity had become a force of its own, a storm sweeping through the asteroid belt. And as I recorded the devastation wrought by their cunning, I understood the horrifying truth. We had underestimated them. Not in strength, not in numbers, but in will. The council would soon convene to debate reinforcements, but even now, a question lingered in every mind aboard the command fleet. Could any force withstand a species that thrived on chaos, that turned every disadvantage into advantage, that fought not merely to survive but to define the limits of the impossible? The answer remained unknown. But one certainty loomed. The humans had shown us a truth no simulation could predict, a reality we could neither contain nor ignore. And the battle above the asteroid belt was only the beginning. Our sectors began to crumble, not under the weight of force, but under the inexorable brilliance of human improvisation. From the quiet safety of orbit, I watched our supply lines unravel, sabotaged in ways so subtle they seemed guided by invisible hands. Convoys vanished along predetermined routes. Communication networks, our most trusted instruments, became riddled with misdirection, redirecting our own intelligence against our forces. For the first time, I realized that no algorithm, no tactical model, no predictive simulation could capture the essence of human ingenuity. It began with small acts, traps laid in debris fields, feints that drew our fleets into ambushes, seemingly accidental collisions that destroyed supply ships and forward stations. And then, in a maneuver that should have been impossible, the humans detonated a dozen resource depots simultaneously, transforming the debris into a crushing barrage aimed at a battalion of our mechanized enforcers. Each strike was precise, each outcome carefully choreographed, yet executed with the appearance of randomness. From my vantage point, I saw our most advanced tactics exposed as mechanistic, predictable, vulnerable. The humans anticipated our moves instinctively, exploiting them with the precision of apex predators. What struck me, above all, was their resilience. Every loss sparked innovation. Every setback birthed ingenuity. Children became scouts in the shattered tunnels beneath their cities, mapping enemy movements and marking paths for counterattacks. Engineers, once bound to workshops, wielded weapons as if they had always been soldiers. The wounded returned to fight, exhaustion etched in their faces, yet their resolve unbroken. Fear was not weakness, it was fuel. Death was not a deterrent, it was a challenge, laughed at, and transformed into strategy. He observed teams scaling rubble, improvising pulleys and lifts to position weapons in unreachable locations. Patrols moved like shadows, communicating with silent gestures, exploiting gaps in our sensors we had believed infallible. In every action there was an economy of effort, a rhythm that defied our understanding. Chaos was not their enemy, it was their instrument. Even as I chronicled these feats, I felt the universe itself bending to accommodate them. Probabilities shifted subtly, almost imperceptibly, as if the very fabric of space and strategy yielded before the pressure of human will. Our fleets, once confident and precise, found themselves ensnared in patterns we could not predict. Tactics honed over millennia failed against improvisation born of necessity and relentless courage. The most harrowing moment came when I witnessed the humans orchestrate a decoy strike that drew a cruiser into an asteroid cluster. Sensors warned of impending collision. Protocols dictated retreat. Yet the humans moved with purpose, timing their maneuvers to redirect debris not only to destroy the cruiser but to neutralize an entire squadron in its path. The audacity of such a tactic, a risk so extreme that it should have been catastrophic, succeeded flawlessly. Every calculation that had guided our empire's campaigns faltered, and still, the humans advanced. From the shadows of collapsed cities, small bands emerged to reclaim lost ground. Engineers rigged salvaged railguns to ambush approaching drones. Scouts infiltrated our forward stations, turning sensors and weapon arrays against our own forces. Each encounter left our soldiers reeling, our analysts scrambling, our commanders doubting. We had measured life forms by strength, by numbers, by technological supremacy, but humans redefined these measures entirely. They were neither strongest nor largest, neither fastest nor most advanced. They were a force of adaptation, improvisation, and relentless resolve. As I recorded these events, a horrifying clarity emerged. Humans were not simply surviving, they were a phenomenon. They exposed the limits of probability, of expectation, of control itself. The more we pressed, the more the universe seemed to yield to their ingenuity. We confronted a paradox we could not resolve. How do you destroy a species that refuses to break, that thrives under pressure, that converts desperation into mastery? In the tunnels, I watched their society operate like a living organism. Orders flowed without speech. Signals were conveyed with gestures and lights, and every citizen became a node in a collective intelligence. Children set traps and guided squads through labyrinthine corridors. Engineers repurposed wreckage into weapons, turning the detritus of their shattered world into instruments of war. Even the infirm, those who should have been sidelined, were integrated, their knowledge leveraged to predict enemy patterns. Exhaustion did not hinder them. It refined them. Fear did not paralyze them. It sharpened them. Every defeat became a lesson, every setback a step forward. From my perspective, the humans had transformed collapse into creation. Each act of desperation revealed a spark of genius, a strategy that defied the most complex simulations of our empire. I sensed a rhythm to their chaos, a pattern so intricate that it mocked every calculation we had relied upon for eons. The very laws of strategy, of probability, of control seemed to bend and warp under their presence. And in that observation, I felt the full weight of what humanity represented. Not a species to conquer, not a civilization to contain, but a force that challenged everything we believed immutable. They were living proof that life could not be bound by rules, that ingenuity could outpace technology, and that the will to survive could redefine the cosmos itself. The realization settled over me like ice in the marrow. Humans were more than exceptional. They were inevitable. And as our fleets faltered, as strategies crumbled, I understood a terror I could not name. This species, ragged and fragmented though they were, could not be predicted, could not be suppressed, and perhaps could not be defeated at all. And yet, as I documented their next movements, I could not look away. Their brilliance radiated like a spark in the darkness, and I knew, with a certainty that chilled me, that the battle had only begun, and the humans were already several steps ahead. We began to call it the human paradox, their simultaneous fragility and invincibility. Across scorched worlds, where our bombardments had reduced cities to ash and craters, we expected silence, desolation, the hollow victory of dominion. Instead, we found life crawling back from the ruins. Settlements rose from rubble. Communities organized with an efficiency that defied our expectations, as though the very act of survival had given rise to a precision we could neither anticipate nor model. Small bands of humans achieved feats that should have been impossible. Orbital defenses, battered and near collapse, were repaired mid-battle, rerouted through fractured circuits, and brought online again with lethal efficiency. Weapons cobbled from wreckage became instruments of precision destruction. Our simulations, the product of centuries of predictive logic, failed utterly. Outcomes calculated with absolute certainty were invalidated in real time. Humans seemed guided by something intangible, a force we could not replicate, a principle outside the comprehension of any algorithm, sensor, or historian. Their courage inspired not only one another but our own soldiers. Even as our troops struggled to maintain composure, whispers circulated among commanders about a species blessed by inevitability. They moved, fought, and triumphed in ways that seemed less calculated and more predestined, as if an invisible hand guided their actions, bending probability to their favor. And yet it was not mere luck or chance. It was unity, empathy, cunning, and an unyielding belief in something greater than themselves. Where we had ruled through fear, they ruled through hope. Where we imposed order with fleets, they imposed it through tenacity. In the aftermath of every clash, we saw their resilience manifest again and again. Survivors of destroyed outposts returned with improvised weapons and altered strategies. Communities regrouped even after catastrophic bombardments, adapting faster than any of our intelligence protocols could track. Children became couriers of vital intelligence. Engineers, once sheltered and passive, wielded weapons with lethal precision. Every citizen contributed. Every life became an instrument of strategy. Exhaustion was treated not as a limitation, but as armor. Fear became a weapon. The specter of death, a challenge to confront with audacious creativity. From our observation decks, I could not help but marvel at their ingenuity. Entire planetary networks reduced to chaos were restored and improved in hours. Orbital arrays reconfigured themselves under human hands. Solar conduits rerouted to power defensive grids, and debris fields transformed into deadly ambush zones. Every act, every adaptation struck a profound imbalance into our carefully constructed models of war. This species, fragile in form yet indestructible in essence, operated with a logic beyond prediction, a rhythm we could not discern. Their victories were not won by brute force alone. It was the subtle interplay of empathy and strategy, courage and collaboration, hope and determination. Soldiers whispered in awe as they witnessed feats that violated physics, logic, and probability itself. Each encounter reinforced a terrifying truth. Humans did not merely survive, they redefined what survival meant. The more we attempted to contain them, the more they evolved, transforming disadvantage into innovation, despair into strategy, chaos into opportunity. And still, they pressed forward. Their settlements multiplied across scarred landscapes, rising like beacons from devastation. Each reconstructed outpost radiated the message of defiance, a signal stronger than any weapon, louder than any fleet. We observed their leaders, scarred and weary, orchestrating defenses with precision and calm that made our officers uneasy. They operated not as individuals, but as nodes in a collective organism, communicating without words, anticipating threats before they fully formed, and guiding their people with an almost preternatural insight. With every encounter, the paradox deepened. Humans were vulnerable, yet invincible. Their bodies were fragile, their numbers small, their technology inferior in comparison to our fleets. Yet their will was unbreakable, their adaptability boundless, their presence undeniable. Where our calculations predicted failure, they achieved triumph. Where we expected despair, they exhibited joy. Where we assumed inevitability, they created destiny. As I chronicled their actions, I sensed a subtle shift in the cosmos itself. Probability, once predictable, became pliable under their influence. Patterns dissolved in the face of improvisation. Logic faltered in the presence of audacity. What we had believed universal, the fundamental laws of strategy, control, and survival, were challenged by their presence. Humans were rewriting the rules of existence itself. The councils of our empires grew uneasy. Reports flooded in. Even worlds considered secured were now contested, the humans reclaiming territory that should have been lost. Analysts and commanders alike whispered a single unspoken question: how do you destroy that which refuses to break? And more terrifyingly, how do you predict that which refuses to be predicted? We had expected a fight, a war, a sequence of predictable engagements leading to inevitable victory. Instead, we found ourselves facing something far more profound. A force of nature disguised as a species. Their victories were a symphony of will and ingenuity, their failures merely preludes to greater innovation. To witness them was to witness impossibility made manifest. To observe a paradox that defied comprehension, the fragile yet invincible humans. And as I recorded the next series of engagements, I realized with a dawning horror that the battle had long since ceased to be about territory or resources. It was now about something far greater, the indomitable spirit of a species that refused to submit, a force whose reach could not be contained by fleets, by strategies, or by the conventions of the universe itself. The paradox persisted, radiating across scorched worlds and shattered cities, a constant reminder that humans were not merely fighting, they were ascending. And in that realization, our certainty faltered. The council chambers were silent, yet the tension was palpable. Our fleets faltered across multiple sectors, supply lines shattered, orbital arrays compromised. What had begun as a minor irritation, a species we assumed primitive, uncoordinated, inconsequential, had become an unstoppable storm. Reports flooded in from every quadrant. Human vessels, small and ragged yet executed with lethal precision, tore through our orbital blockades. Starports we considered secure were reduced to ash, debris fields redirected with surgical accuracy into our strongest battalions. The humans moved with the confidence of predators, as if they alone dictated the rhythm of battle. From my observation perch, I watched their commanders issue orders with a calm that defied the screams of dying ships and the chaos of collapsing infrastructure. Every maneuver was calculated with a patience that unnerved our own officers. They anticipated our countermeasures before they were fully implemented, exploiting the blind spots in our strategy with a ruthlessness that bordered on artistry. Even the smallest detachment operating with apparent improvisation executed maneuvers that nullified entire battalions. Our analysts, masters of warcraft across eons, could not keep pace. Every simulation, every prediction crumbled in real time under the weight of human audacity. Across the galaxy, whispers traveled faster than the fleets. Alien empires, allies, and rivals alike spoke in tones laced with fear and awe. We had underestimated a species capable of inspiring both dread and admiration. For decades, we had assumed supremacy, relying on overwhelming numbers, technological superiority, and precise calculation. The humans were proof that these assumptions were insufficient. They fought not merely to survive, but to leave a mark, to assert a principle older than empires, the indomitable spirit of life itself. In the halls of war, debates grew heated. Surrender was considered in fleeting thoughts, dismissed immediately, yet the mere contemplation reflected the magnitude of our predicament. Humans, small and fragmented though they were, forced a revelation upon us. They were not constrained by survival alone. Their strategy was an extension of instinct, their courage amplified by purpose, their victories shaped by legacy. Each encounter carried a weight beyond territory. Beyond resources, each strike was a testament to something eternal, something no calculation could fully encompass. I observed their vessels glide through the wreckage of our defenses with an almost ethereal precision. Drones and turrets designed to annihilate intruders were rendered useless, not by strength, but by ingenuity. Fleet formations that had withstood countless campaigns disintegrated under the unpredictable rhythm of human tactics. They adapted faster than we could anticipate, improvising with raw materials, repurposing wreckage, and coordinating strikes across multiple fronts with an efficiency that suggested preternatural awareness. The human commanders, wiry and scarred, issued orders with a serene clarity, as if chaos were a tool in their hands rather than an obstacle. Even amidst the fiery detritus of collapsing starports, they moved with a composure that confounded our understanding. They anticipated counterattacks, redirected energy flows mid-battle, and executed diversions with flawless timing. Every strike was measured, yet every outcome appeared spontaneous. The pattern defied logic. The outcome defied probability. From orbit, I saw the shockwaves of their assaults ripple across our command grids. Fleet morale faltered as soldiers whispered of humans, blessed by inevitability, a phrase born from awe, not mockery. Technology alone could not predict them. Algorithms failed. Predictions faltered. And in the center of it all, the humans pressed forward, relentless, audacious, unyielding. It became clear that this was not a battle in the traditional sense. It was evolution accelerated. The humans were ascending before our eyes, mastering not just the mechanics of war, but the philosophy of survival itself. Every encounter revealed a species capable of reshaping the rules we believed immutable. The paradox was undeniable, fragile, fragmented, and technologically inferior, yet moving with precision, cunning, and resilience that rivaled the oldest and most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Even the universe seemed to hold its breath. Probabilities warped, outcomes shifted, and strategies we had relied upon for millennia collapsed into chaos. In the corridors of our fleets, officers stared at displays in disbelief, unable to comprehend how such a small, ragged species could exert influence so profound. And yet we could not look away. Every engagement, every maneuver was a testament to the humans' ability to bend circumstance itself to their will. I realized with chilling clarity that what we were witnessing transcended conflict. We were not observing a mere battle. We were witnessing the acceleration of a species into legend. The humans did not fight for conquest or dominion. They fought for legacy, for principle, for the indomitable spark of life that refuses to submit. Every loss they endured strengthened them. Every setback inspired innovation. Every danger encountered became an opportunity for brilliance. The final realization struck like a meteor against the hull of our certainty. Humans were not merely exceptional, they were a phenomenon. The combination of strategy, instinct, and will we observed in them surpassed calculation, surpassed expectation, surpassed understanding. They reminded us why, even in the annals of our ancient empires, the name of humanity alone inspires awe and terror, and as our council reconvened, fleets in disarray, communications fraying, and allies questioning their allegiance, the truth settled over us like a shadow. We had misjudged them at our peril. Humans were not just surviving, they were ascending. Not just winning, they were redefining existence. Not just resisting, they were reminding the galaxy why some species cannot and should not be underestimated. The storm was no longer on the horizon, it was upon us. And for the first time in eons, we, the architects of countless conquests, trembled. The remnants of our fleets gathered in ragged formation. Hulls scorched, systems failing, morale teetering on the edge of collapse. Across sectors, our forces tried to regroup, to salvage what we could from a war spiraling beyond prediction. Yet, even as we rallied, the humans pressed onward. Their victories were unrelenting, and the planets we had once deemed irrecoverable were reborn under their indomitable will. We had expected resistance, even sporadic defiance. What we did not anticipate was the seamless transformation of loss into strategy. Orbital arrays, shattered and inert, were restored and fortified within hours. Supply lines, obliterated and scattered, were rerouted, concealed, and transformed into instruments of offense. The humans adapted with a fluidity no algorithm could capture. Each battle was a lesson, each setback a calculated prelude to triumph. Their ingenuity confounded the most sophisticated war simulations, forcing our analysts into frantic revisions that always lagged behind reality. From my observation decks, I watched as civilizations across the galaxy reconsidered their perceptions of humanity. Worlds that had dismissed them as primitive now sent emissaries, not to exterminate, but to understand. Our allies and competitors alike hesitated, sending reconnaissance rather than fleets, acknowledging an unspoken truth. Humans were not to be underestimated. Their resilience had become a symbol of inevitability, a force the universe itself seemed compelled to recognize. It was not brute force alone that defined their ascension. The humans' victories were rooted in principle, unity, and vision. On the surface of scorched planets, small bands repaired shattered defenses with meticulous care, repurposed debris into weapons, and coordinated attacks across vast distances with precision that rivaled the most advanced artificial intelligences. Engineers became strategists, scholars became tacticians, and every life, from the youngest child to the most battle-scarred veteran, contributed to the collective will. They were not merely surviving, they were mastering adaptation, turning chaos into order, scarcity into opportunity. The humans' audacity reshaped the battlefield itself. Where we had anticipated stalemates, they carved paths through defenses, forcing treaties, alliances, and reluctant respect. Systems we assumed lost became staging grounds for strategic counteroffensives. Entire sectors once under our uncontested dominion were wrested back through precision strikes that blended ingenuity with audacity. I observed their fleets glide across battlefields with a balance of improvisation and premeditation that made prediction impossible. Each engagement reinforced a truth I could not ignore. The humans were rewriting the rules of conflict itself. Their courage radiated outward, influencing even those who did not yet understand them. Across worlds, whispered stories spread of humans standing amidst ruins, unbroken, laughing in the face of annihilation, orchestrating strikes with tools scavenged from devastation. Their ingenuity was not only tactical but symbolic. Every action a statement of intent, every triumph a declaration that life itself could not be subdued. I realized, with mounting awe, that humanity's resilience was more than physical. It was philosophical. They were a manifestation of the eternal spark of life, refusing to be extinguished, refusing to yield to any force, no matter how formidable. From the burning ruins of our arrogance, they ascended. Not as survivors, not as conquerors, but as masters of fate. Their presence was a testament to endurance, adaptation, and the audacity to rise against impossible odds. Even in my role as chronicler, my mind struggled to contain the enormity of what I witnessed. I had cataloged the rise and fall of countless civilizations, but none had approached the singularity of determination displayed by humanity. Every measurement, every model, every historical precedent fell short. Humans were a phenomenon beyond comprehension, a force that reshaped probability, perception, and expectation, and yet, it was not merely the scale of their achievements that defined them, it was their essence. Where our empires relied on domination, weapons, and calculated fear, the humans relied on something less tangible, but infinitely more potent: spirit. In every engagement, they demonstrated empathy and cunning, hope and ruthlessness, creativity and adaptability, united by an instinct older than any empire. They moved as a collective consciousness, yet retained the spark of individuality that drove innovation, audacity, and courage. This duality, fragile yet indomitable, was the true source of their power. Observing them, I understood why every species, no matter how mighty, trembles at the name of humanity. They were not merely a species to be fought. They were a principle to be reckoned with, a force that challenged the assumptions underpinning civilizations, empires, and the very mechanics of survival. Each act of defiance, each calculated strike, each resurrection of a fallen world conveyed a singular truth. Humans do not merely adapt, they ascend. Their influence extended beyond war. Galactic politics shifted subtly under their presence. Powers that had once ignored them now sent observers. Treaties were reconsidered, alliances reevaluated. Even our own projections faltered as we struggled to account for the humans' capacity to inspire, intimidate, and fundamentally alter the balance of power. Their victories were not only tactical, they were ideological, reshaping expectations of what a species could accomplish against insurmountable odds. Who had chronicled millennia of conquest and dominion could not record this without reverence. Humans embodied a principle older than empires, older than fear, the eternal spark of life refusing to be extinguished. They moved through the cosmos with a resolve that transcended survival, a vision that defied probability, and a unity that challenged every assumption of dominance we had ever held. Their presence was a challenge and a warning. No force, no matter how overwhelming, could contain a species that refused to break. And so, as the remnants of our fleets regrouped, battered and hesitant, I watched humanity ascend. Not as conquerors, not merely as survivors, but as masters of fate itself. They had become icons of endurance, ingenuity, and indomitable will. To gaze upon them was to understand, in the deepest sense, why all civilizations tremble in their presence, why the galaxy itself takes notice, and why, even in the heart of power, the name of humanity inspires awe and terror. The lesson was clear, etched across scorched worlds and burning skies. The humans had risen against the impossible, and in doing so, they had transcended it. The universe would never again be the same. The aftermath was not silence. It was transformation. Across countless star systems, the echoes of humanity's defiance radiated outward, reshaping alliances, civilizations, and the very expectations by which the galaxy measured strength. Fleets no longer symbolized ultimate power. Firepower no longer dictated supremacy. Instead, resolve, ingenuity, and the refusal to submit became the benchmarks of influence. Every world touched by human intervention reevaluated what it meant to endure, adapt, and rise against impossible odds. From the observation decks, I chronicled whispers among alien civilizations. Once dismissive empires spoke cautiously now, sending emissaries to observe rather than annihilate. Tales spread of humans who had defied extinction, repelled tyrants, and forged victories against forces that had once seemed insurmountable. Their ingenuity, courage, and relentless perseverance became a cosmic standard, a measure against which other species now judged themselves. Humans were no longer merely a species, they were a principle. A force that demanded recognition, respect, and, in some, fear. Their legend was not constrained by borders or political structures. Across the galaxy, children heard stories of human scouts navigating shattered cities with precision and daring. Scholars chronicled battles where human improvisation had turned the tide against empires. Even in systems untouched by direct conflict, the influence of their resilience reached, inspiring resistance movements, encouraging cooperation, and redefining what it meant to survive. Humanity's victories were lessons, their audacity a curriculum for life itself. What struck me most, as a chronicler of millennia of conquests, was the subtlety of their power. Humans did not dominate through fleets alone. They conquered perception, rewrote assumptions, and challenged the very framework of control. Where our empires relied on fear, humans relied on will. Where we relied on certainty, they relied on adaptability. Where we imposed order through force, they cultivated it through audacity. Every encounter, every engagement, every small act of defiance contributed to a legacy that was now woven into the fabric of the galaxy itself. Even now, I sense unease among my kind. Officers, analysts, and counselors move with a subtle caution that was previously unknown. We understand, collectively, that we have encountered a species that cannot be fully predicted, conquered, or contained. Humanity exists as both paradox and principle. Fragile yet invincible, small yet immeasurably influential, limited by physicality but boundless in will. To confront them is to confront uncertainty incarnate, to encounter a force that resists categorization, control, or suppression. Their legacy is not one of fear alone. It is a spark in the darkness, a reminder that life itself can challenge the cosmos to rise to its full potential. Across systems, colonies once loyal to tyrants now embrace resilience, inspired by the audacity of humanity. Entire civilizations reconsider their values, alliances, and methods in response to a species whose actions have rewritten the blueprint of survival. Humanity's influence extends beyond the battlefield. It permeates culture, governance, philosophy, and strategy, creating ripples that will endure for generations. And in that spark, we recognize a truth both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Some species are meant not merely to exist, nor simply to be ruled. They are meant to shape the hearts and minds of the cosmos, not through oppression, not through fleets or weapons, but through the unbreakable strength of will. Humanity embodies that force. Their victories are not measured solely in territory gained or enemies defeated, but in the enduring inspiration they leave in their wake. Every act of defiance becomes a lesson, every triumph a standard, every recovery from loss a challenge to the universe itself. Rise or be left behind. In the chronicles I now maintain, I mark a turning point. The galaxy no longer measures supremacy in conventional terms. Instead, it measures audacity, resilience, and creativity. Human action has become a template of possibility, a benchmark that challenges all sentient life to reconsider the nature of power, survival, and achievement. Across sectors, fleets and governments shift their strategies not to crush, but to comprehend, to emulate in some measure what it means to endure like humanity. And as I conclude these records, I am struck by the final, unassailable realization. Humans are not simply a species. They are a phenomenon, a principle older than empires, older than fear itself. Their presence is a reminder, a constant assertion that life's potential cannot be fully contained, that will can bend circumstance, and that audacity can redefine destiny. They are a spark that refuses to dim, a force that inspires awe, a paradox that challenges certainty. In the vast expanse of the cosmos, we, the observers, the conquerors, and the chroniclers, now reckon with the legacy of a species that will not be ignored. Humanity's imprint is indelible. Their defiance, their ingenuity, their courage, the combination of these traits ensures that they will endure not only in existence, but in influence. Their legacy will persist as both a warning and an inspiration. Some life is not meant to be ruled, only respected, and some spirits are destined to illuminate the universe with the force of unyielding will. And so, in the quiet aftermath of battles, across scorched worlds and rebuilt settlements, the final truth crystallizes. Humanity's defiance is eternal, their influence boundless, and their story, The story of a species that refused to break resonates as a lesson to all who gaze into the infinite. A reminder that courage, ingenuity, and will are forces more potent than fleets, empires, or fear. And in that legacy, the galaxy trembles, not from domination, but from awe.